Shiny shoes on dusty ground. Shiny shoes on dusty ground. That was the first thought that popped into Billy's head as he skidded to a halt behind the barn. Mr. Grumble's pearl-white sedan sat gleaming incongruously amongst Grandpa's rusty tools and discarded tractor parts. The sun glinted off its pristine hood, a stark contrast to the parched earth and the perpetually peeling paint of the barn. A knot tightened in Billy's stomach. Mr. Grumbles never ventured this far from the pristine, cookie-cutter lawns of the HOA. Unless he smelled trouble. Billy sprinted toward the house, gravel crunching under his worn sneakers. He burst through the back door, nearly knocking over a stack of Grandpa's Western novels. "Grandpa," he yelled, the screen door slamming shut behind him. "Mr. Grumbles is here." His car's parked near the petunias. Grandpa, humming off-key to an old Merle Haggard tune, was hunched over the kitchen table, meticulously cleaning his shotgun. He glanced up, his weathered face betraying a flicker of annoyance. "Grumbles, huh? What's he want now? Complaining about the roosters crowing again?" "I don't know," Billy said, his voice tight. But he looked serious. And he was staring at your petunias like they were growing weeds made of solid gold. Grandpa slowly set down the shotgun, a metallic clink echoing in the suddenly silent kitchen. The humming stopped. He fixed Billy with a look that could curdle milk. "Petunias, eh? Those petunias are the only splash of color in this whole damn county." He rose, his joints popping like firecrackers. "Come on, Billy. Let's see what that HOA varmint is up to now." As they walked towards the front of the house, Billy noticed Grandpa didn't pick up his usual walking stick. Instead, his hand rested casually on the handle of a well-worn hunting knife sheathed at his hip. The air, thick with the scent of dry grass and impending confrontation, crackled with a strange, unsettling energy. Billy couldn't shake the feeling that this visit from Mr. Grumbles was different. This time, it felt like something more than just a petty complaint. The Grumbles of the HOA. That's just Mr. Grumbles being Mr. Grumbles, Grandpa sighed, leaning back in his porch swing. He's been the self-appointed watchdog of this HOA since Hector was a pup. Remember the flamingo incident of '08? Billy groaned, shoving a handful of peanuts into his mouth. "Don't remind me. Mom loved those flamingos. Loved 'em till Mr. Grumbles sent her a notice citing garish lawn ornaments violating Section 3B subsection 12. Then there was the great mailbox debacle of 12, the lavender shutter scandal of 15, and don't even get me started on the petunia protest of last summer." Grandpa chuckled, though there was a hard edge to it. "Seems anything that brings a little color to this concrete jungle rubs him the wrong way. He's just a miserable old coot," Billy muttered, kicking at a loose floorboard. "Why do you even bother talking to him?" Grandpa's eyes narrowed. "Because someone has to. Besides," he added with a glint, "a little friction keeps the gears turning. Me and Grumbles, we're like oil and water. Never gonna mix, but you need both to keep the engine running." He spat a stream of tobacco juice into the yard. "Just don't expect me to invite him for tea anytime soon." The swing creaked, a rhythmic counterpoint to the simmering tension between them, a silent testament to years of petty grievances and stubborn pride. "Dust bunny violation." Mr. Grumbles circled Grandpa's Ford F-150 like a buzzard eyeing roadkill. The truck, normally a point of pride, was now coated in a thick layer of dried mud, courtesy of yesterday's pig escapade. Mr. Grumbles ran a gloved finger along the hood, then held it up, his nose wrinkling. "Excessive particulate matter," he declared, his voice tight with disapproval. "Clearly visible accumulation of dust and biological debris." Grandpa, leaning against the porch railing, spat a stream of tobacco juice into the dust. Billy stood beside him, clenching his fists. Mr. Grumbles pulled a notepad from his breast pocket, the crisp white pages a stark contrast to the muddy landscape. He clicked a pen, the sound sharp in the quiet air. "Violation notice," he announced, scribbling furiously. "Section 4.2, subsection B, maintenance of vehicle exterior. Failure to maintain a clean and aesthetically pleasing vehicle exterior. Corrective action required, immediate and thorough cleaning of vehicle. Failure to comply within 48 hours will result in a fine of $250. He tore the page from the notepad with a flourish, his eyes gleaming with self-importance. He marched towards the porch, ignoring the rooster's defiant crow, and slapped the notice against the truck's windshield. The paper fluttered for a moment, then stuck, the stark white a flag of war against the mud. Mr. Grumbles turned, a satisfied smirk playing on his lips. He adjusted his tie, puffed out his chest, and strode back to his pristine, HOA-approved sedan. Grandpa and Billy exchanged a frustrated glance. The rooster crowed again, louder this time, as if mocking Mr. Grumbles' retreating figure. "Ranch life isn't always tidy." Mr. Grumbles, Grandpa began, his voice surprisingly even. Ranching isn't tidy. It's living with weather and animals. Sometimes that means mud. Sometimes it means, well, you saw it. He gestured vaguely towards the pig pen with a mud-caked hand. The air still hung thick with the scent of damp earth and something decidedly piggish. Mr. Grumbles adjusted his tie, the not a stark contrast to the surrounding chaos. With all due respect, Mr. Abernathy, that's not an excuse for creating an eyesore. Property values are at stake. Regulations are regulations. He tapped a manicured nail against his clipboard. We have standards in this community. Standards? Grandpa chuckled, a low rumble in his chest. Son, my standards are keeping the herd fed and the fences mended. This ain't a manicured lawn we're talking about, it's a working ranch. Things get messy. He picked a stray piece of hay from his beard. You city folk just don't understand. Mr. Grumbles puffed out his chest. I understand maintaining a respectable appearance. And I understand that you, sir, are in violation of HOA Bylaw 3. 2, subsection D regarding unsanctioned vehicular modifications and unsavory landscaping. He scribbled something down with a flourish. The setting sun glinted off his wire-rimmed glasses, making him look less like a concerned neighbor and more like a zealous accountant tallying up demerits. Grandpa's eyes narrowed. Unsavory? These pigs are happier than you look right now. And that truck? He paused, a flicker of something dangerous in his gaze. That truck is family. Bessie's muddy secret. The HOA cop's pristine sedan still sat on the edge of the north pasture, glinting under the afternoon sun like a taunt. Billy kicked at a loose pebble, sending it skittering across the dry earth. He needed a distraction. Something. Anything. Then, like a forgotten tune surfacing in his mind, he remembered Bessie, Grandpa's ancient Ford F-100, affectionately named for a particularly stubborn sow, sat perpetually mired in mud near the pig pen. Its faded blue paint was more brown these days, coated in a thick layer of the pig's preferred wallow. Grandpa hadn't driven her in years, claiming the engine coughed more than he did these days. A slow grin spread across Billy's face. Bessie. It was crazy, ridiculous even, but a plan was forming. He pictured the look on Officer Davies' face if Bessie were to somehow, miraculously, free herself from her muddy prison and, well, Billy hadn't gotten that far yet. He glanced back at the house, then towards the barn. He needed tools. And Grandpa. Convincing the old man would be the trickiest part. Worth a shot, Billy muttered under his breath, a spark of hope and a healthy dose of mischief igniting within him. The afternoon suddenly felt a lot less oppressive. A plan in the pig pen. The stench of manure hung thick in the air, a familiar blanket on the humid afternoon. Billy pulled Grandpa further into the pig pen, dodging a sow rooting for acorns. Grandpa, listen, he whispered, his voice barely audible above the grunting. I have a plan. Grandpa, usually a picture of jovial ease, looked troubled. Billy, I appreciate your spirit, but we can't go causing any more trouble. That HOA fella Park, he's got eyes everywhere. Billy pressed on, relaying his idea. He spoke quickly, eyes darting between Grandpa and the oblivious pigs. When he finished, a long silence followed, broken only by the rhythmic snuffling of snouts in the mud. Grandpa sighed, the sound like air leaking from a punctured tire. Son, that's just plain crazy. He wiped a smear of mud from his overalls. I don't know, Billy. Seems a bit much. Billy's shoulders slumped. He'd hoped for more enthusiasm. Then a glint flickered in Grandpa's eye. A slow smile spread across his weathered face, crinkling the corners around his eyes. He chuckled, a low rumble in his chest that vibrated through Billy's own bones. Crazy, huh? Maybe. But you know what? That Park fella deserves a little crazy. Hand me that bucket. He grabbed the bucket and began splashing mud on his boots, a mischievous light now blazing in his eyes. All right, Billy, he said, his voice suddenly full of youthful energy. Let's give Mr. HOA a pigsty surprise. Bessie's revenge. Grandpa wrestled with Bessie's ignition. The engine coughed, sputtered, then roared to life, a plume of black smoke belching from the exhaust. He threw me a wink, his eyes twinkling with mischief. Revenge is a dish best served muddy, he chuckled, shifting the old truck into gear. Bessie lumbered forward, a metal behemoth answering Grandpa's call. Each rotation of the tires churned the pig wallow into an even thicker, more viscous goo. Mr. Grumbles, oblivious, continued his inspection of the fence line, clipboard in hand. He stooped low, peering at a loose wire, his back a tempting target. The truck groaned, its aged springs protesting the strain. The aroma of damp earth and pig manure filled the air, a stark contrast to the pristine gleam of Mr. Grumble's sedan, now directly in Bessie's path. Grandpa maneuvered with practiced ease, the truck inching closer, a slow-motion catastrophe unfolding. The mud sprayed outwards, splattering the lower panels of Mr. Grumble's precious vehicle. He remained unaware, engrossed in his self-important task. The gap narrowed, Bessie a creeping, muddy monster intent on claiming its prize. Watering the yard, ranch style. Mr. Grumbles revved his engine again, tires spinning uselessly, flinging muck higher up the truck's pristine sides. A vein throbbed in his forehead, stark against his reddening face. He jammed the gearshift into reverse, but the wheels just churned, digging him deeper. "I'm stuck," he stated, the words laced with disbelief. Grandpa chuckled, the sound rolling out like thunder across the suddenly quiet yard. He adjusted the nozzle on the hose, widening the spray. "Well, now, wouldn't want that flower bed to dry out, would we?" He aimed the muddy water at the struggling truck, coating the windshield in a thick, brown glaze. Billy, perched on the porch railing, whooped with delight. "Can I help, Grandpa? Please?" Grandpa winked. "Sure thing, partner." He tossed Billy a bucket. "Let's give those thirsty tires a good drink." Billy scrambled down, grabbed the bucket, and plunged it into the trough. He ran towards the truck, splashing a generous dollop of mud directly onto Mr. Grumble's driver's side window. Mr. Grumble's face, now entirely scarlet, appeared briefly before disappearing behind a fresh layer of grime. He pounded on the horn in short, frustrated bursts. Billy giggled, returning for another bucketful. The air hung thick with the smell of damp earth and simmering rage. The muddy retreat. Mr. Grumble sputtered, a brown stream erupting from his mouth as he tried to stand. He looked less like a homeowners association president and more like a very angry, mud-caked boar. This is preposterous," he choked, swatting ineffectually at the clinging muck. His shiny shoes were gone, likely swallowed whole by the ravenous mud pit. "Preposterous fun, you mean?" Grandpa boomed, leaning against the fence, his eyes twinkling. Billy, perched on the gate, stifled a giggle that escaped as a snort. Grumble's face contorted. He opened his mouth, probably to launch another volley of complaints, but then he seemed to deflate. He stared at his mud-plastered car, at Grandpa's grinning face, at Billy's barely contained mirth. Something seemed to break within him. The fight drained away, leaving only a residue of defeat and humiliation. He took a shaky breath. "This isn't worth it," he muttered. His voice barely audible over the buzzing of flies attracted to everything. He turned, squelching with each step, and began the long, ignominious trek back to his car. He didn't even attempt to open the door. Instead, he just slumped against the hood, a defeated, muddy monument to overzealous regulation. After a moment, the engine coughed to life, and the mud-streaked sedan lurched forward, leaving deep tire tracks in its wake. Grandpa watched him go, then threw back his head and roared with laughter. Billy joined in, their combined mirth echoing across the newly quiet ranch. The air, thick with the smell of earth and pig, suddenly felt lighter, cleaner, somehow victorious.